Hey, what's up guys? I'm Josh, and it's been almost a year to the day of me reviewing the concept version for the Indiegogo campaign of the Drop Panda. Now, the Indiegogo campaign was originally set for a $50,000 goal, and they have passed $1.5 million. I think that's over 3,000% of their original goal. So clearly a lot of people are interested in this headphone. My question is, a year later, when it's actually released, when you can actually go and buy it, did it deliver on its promises? Now, there is a lot to talk about in this headphone, but I still feel like the review of this headphone still stands because what I have in my hands now, which is the official produced version, is exactly the same as the concept. And I mean exactly the same. In fact, I think the only thing that has changed is a couple little branding spots on the yokes, and the box is now black instead of cardboard. Now, the overall conclusion of my review was basically like it has a specific sound signature of its own, and you may like or dislike that, but I find the sound to be better than other Bluetooth headphones. And I still think that's the case, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I was really curious about what other people thought of the sound quality and whether or not Drop delivered on this. So I went to the Indiegogo comments and the Drop reviews to actually look at what the general public thought about this headphone. And largely, it seems like a success. All of the positive comments were emphasizing the things that this promised to deliver, like a high quality sound for the $400 asking price that it's in. And all the negative comments were along the same complaints that I have, mostly revolving around the comfort, and a couple negative comments revolving around kind of the software and user experience. But the overall rating for this is actually quite good at 4.3 out of 5 stars on Drop's website. So a lot of people who did get this seem to be quite happy with it, and there are a ton of 5-star reviews praising the sound quality. Now, I am seeing some slightly conflicting comments about the approach that people are taking on the sound. Some people are comparing it to its classification of headphones being closed back Bluetooth headphones like the Sony XM4, and others were comparing it to more audiophile, maybe even open back headphones at the $400 mark. And I think both of those are fair. Hear me out. The fair comments for the comparisons against the Sennheisers and the Bose and the Sonys is that it is in that classification. It is a closed back Bluetooth headphone that fits in that mold. But I also think that the comments about the more audiophile stuff was also fair because that's how Drop marketed it, as basically an audiophile option for a closed back Bluetooth headphone. Now, I think my thoughts 1 year later, hearing the final version of this, analyzing everything, is that this is squarely in the middle. It is a closed back Bluetooth headphone that is sort of for audiophiles. It's a lot closer towards the audiophile sound signature than that of something like an XM4. And this really comes down to what I consider to be good marketing, which is marketing that actually takes real tangible benefits of the product and advertises them. And so those benefits are that this headphone really shows that sound signature is not always about a codec. It can a lot of times be about the hardware that is in front of that codec. So, hardware that's in here. You have the same drivers that are in the Oppo PM1, PM2, and PM3, which is this circular planar magnetic driver in here. And then you feature what I consider one of the most important aspects that almost all of the Bluetooth headphones miss out on, which is good amplification. This actually features THX AAA amplifiers inbuilt into the system. That's normally something that would be actually reserved for a dedicated desktop amplifier. And the capability of this amp far exceeds that of the typical Bluetooth headphone. Now, I think what makes this headphone sound really good is the tuning and the physical hardware being the amplifier and the driver. So the target customer for this ultimately ends up being somebody who values sound quality and travel experience equally. So some of the features that this does have is Bluetooth 5.0, 30 hours of battery life, IPX6 waterproofing, I think, and a sound quality that's actually good. Now, 3 major things that this doesn't have that some of its rivals do is phone app support, pass-through audio or transparency mode where you can hear things around you, and active noise cancellation. Now, the closed sound out of this naturally is pretty good, though it doesn't come anywhere near competing with something like a Bose 700 or an XM4 for noise cancellation. Now, for sound quality, even in today's market with newer and really good players in this kind of space, like the AirPods Max, this offers something that all of the other headphones miss, which is an excellent mid-range experience. This headphone is centralized mostly around the mid-range. It doesn't have what I consider to be almost a memeable, typical V-shaped sound signature that the majority of Bluetooth headphones, even today, still have, including the XM4, the Bose, the Sonys, the Sennheisers. They've all got sort of this weird V-shaped sound signature, but in different areas. This actually takes a different approach and highlights what I consider the most important regions of sound, the mid-range. So you get an excellent mid-ranging experience here. Now, being a smaller planar magnetic, the bass response has extremely high quality, but not a lot of slam and impact in the real low notes. And there are actually other Bluetooth headphones like the AirPods Max that I think do sub-bass a little bit better than this does, though the quality of this bass here is excellent. But you'll see something familiar with the top end, which is going to be high quality, but not a lot of airiness. So this is going to miss out on some of those upper end kind of ambience frequencies, I would say, that you would see in something like an HC660S or some of the lower end Bayer Dynamics. Those are going to have a more kind of ambient sound in the top end than this will. So you're left with what ends up being a more centralized mid-range experience, and the mid-range here is excellent. It provides phenomenal body and fullness to instruments and vocalists. It has excellent separation, fantastic timbre characteristics, all things that I think are missing on the majority of Bluetooth headphones. So I think what this promised to do, while it's not perfect, it's certainly better than most other options that are available right now. Now, because I've already done a review and talked thoroughly about the sound signature, which hasn't changed, I'll leave that link in the description down below if you're more curious. I go a lot more in depth into the sound quality in this. But for now, I think this thing is excellent for sound quality. Now, the landscape for headphones like this has changed a little bit since early 2020, mostly that AirPod Max. And I think that that is one headphone that you should possibly consider along with this. Now, the Max is more expensive than the Sonys, the Bose, and the Panda, but it sounds better than the Sony and the Bose. I don't think it sounds better than this, but something that might actually make up for that is the build quality and the feature set and the user experience for how complex that device is and how many things it can do is excellent. It also offers some of the best active noise cancellation anywhere on any headphone, and in my opinion, the best transparency mode. It's got excellent device support with supporting multiple devices. It's got custom controls, and the build quality is just superior to everything in the space. So I would almost say that if you wanted good sound quality, maybe not as good as this, maybe like 90% as good as this, but you want the additional features of that, kind of active noise cancellation, Bluetooth life, that headphone to the right person is definitely going to be worth the additional cost for the additional features and pretty close sound quality. This, I would say 90 to 95% as good of sound as this, but with a different sound signature. Okay, so this leaves me with a couple notes and where I think Drop should go next. One, the comfort hasn't improved. I think there are three things that people are going to have issues with here. One is going to be the lack of a decent amount of padding on the top of the headband. That was a complaint of mine. I think another one is that the clamp force is actually quite strong. This should break down over time, but at first it's going to be quite clampy. And the pads are not super thick. And so with the clamp force, because the inside of this headphone is so odd shaped and you have this little bulge right in the center here, you can have a kind of uncomfortable ear experience. And that was one of the more common complaints in some of the reviews. Though again, overall reviews from users are really positive. I'm actually impressed with Drop's commitment to this design and keeping it so consistent from the early model I reviewed. I thought that it was a great headphone then. I still think it's a pretty good headphone now, though I think your options are kind of a little bit more available than they were before. All right, so where I think Drop should go now? Well, they've proved a couple things here. They've proved that you can put a good amplifier in a Bluetooth headphone and reap the rewards of that with good battery life. It's not just going to drain it in 5 hours. They've proved that the hardware is more important than the codec. They proved that people desire a Bluetooth headphone that emphasizes sound quality above some of the features. Where I think they could go with now, and would be the easiest recommendation I've ever had, Bluetooth 6XX. That is a complete audiophile system, let's say priced at $299. You wouldn't have to buy an amp, you wouldn't have to buy a DAC, you would just have a Bluetooth 6XX, and you could call it a day. I hope that they could put the THX amps in, maybe even the next generation that offers a little bit more power than this does, or is maybe even a little bit more energy efficient, so you could get that battery life even longer than it is right now. I would love to see a system like that. Now, one of the things that makes the 6XX kind of difficult for this is where would you build the amplifiers? Now, I think you could actually modify the headband system to sacrifice a little bit of padding space and actually stick a lot of the batteries and maybe even the amplifiers in the headband of that headphone. Though it does bend because it's plastic, so you might have to either make it out of metal or find a workaround for that. But I think there are solutions to some of these problems, and I would absolutely love to see that headphone. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are, though. If you have anything that you would like to see from Drop next, I'm curious where they're going to go. I'm really glad that the general consensus for this headphone was as positive as it was. I'm proud of Drop for actually delivering on an Indiegogo campaign that was a little confusing to me at the beginning. And I think this is a great sign of things to come forward. Okay, guys, I think that's going to wrap it up. Thank you very much for watching. And until the next video, my name is Josh, signing off.